One of the areas in which Nigeria's tech industry has been incredibly forward is in fintech and banking. Over the last 2 decades, we've built one of the most robust and innovative banking industries in the world, frequently innovating in areas where the rest of the world actually hasn't already done. So for instance, we've been able to do peer-to-peer transfers in a way that most Western markets still can't from their banks. Today, we're going to talk about the changing face of banking, how it's affecting you, and what's coming next. We have some incredible guests who have been pioneers and participants in this change and are working at some of the most interesting companies changing the face of banking in Nigeria. Welcome to Tech into the Future, and this is about the changing face of banking.
Today we have 2 guests from the digital banking and fintech space. Uzoma Dozie was the last group managing director for Diamond Bank and is now the CEO and founder of Sparkle Bank. And we also have with us Didi Uwamakwen, who is the VP for MoneyPoint, which I'm sure you have probably seen in the last store that you went to. This is our show today. Let's get to it. Welcome back to Tech into the Future. Joining us today is Uzoma Dozie. He is the founder and CEO of Sparkle, a digital bank. Welcome to the show, Uzoma.
Thank you for having me, guys.
Fantastic.
All right, so let's get to it. You run a digital bank. What does that mean?
Okay, so quickly, digital is for me is paperless, cashless, and after COVID, contactless. So from a digital bank perspective, it is about providing services to people who do not want to deal with paper, don't want to deal with cash, and really, as we go into the contactless payment system, that's actually what they actually want. And the reason for that is numerous. And I think digital means, the raw material for digital is data. So the more data you can capture, the more information you can generate to make decisions, financial and lifestyle, and I think that's where we're going to. That's what the future of digital is.
Fantastic, thank you. So then let's talk about serving customers. What is different in the way a Sparkle will serve their customers compared to a traditional bank, say like a GTB?
Okay, from a layman's, and I'll speak in layman's.
Yes, please.
Please. Minimum disruption. I don't have to go anywhere. Right?
Okay.
I choose when I decide to do stuff, right? I'm in control. So we put the control in the hands of people. So we're excited about open banking. The open banking means that for the first time, the data that banks have kept for you and that you've used, if you've been banking with someone for 10 years or so, they own the data. But now you're going to choose how that data is used, whether you want to, and give permission for people to use it to make decisions about how to serve you. And then for us, it's also how. So it's giving me your data with your permission, and then giving you back information. And I think a simple analogy is, if you look at Spotify, at the end of the year, now everyone's excited about Spotify Wrapped.
Yeah.
What is Spotify Wrapped? It is that I've taken your data and giving you information about what kind of music you like, what your friends like, and introducing you to more stuff. And so, like this year on Sparkle, that's exactly what we did. I think last week, we showed people how they spent their money, right? What they did, which is an insight to that. So, I think for me, moving money, everybody can do that, but what you do with the data, right? How you give back that data, in sense of information to your customer, is what is going to be a defining factor in the future.
Fantastic. Okay, so that's interesting. I think that's innovation on the customer side.
Yes.
What are the other areas in which you're innovating within the business? How else are you different from a traditional bank?
Right. I think the first of all is automation. So like automation is very essential for digital bank. So everybody has automated their front end, whether you're a traditional bank, so like and that's through mobile.
Right.
But on the back end, how are you using new technology to do that?
Are you accusing your competitors of still using pen and paper to manage ledger?
Wait, so manual, I will tell you, like when I was in Diamond Bank, well, first of all, we were the only paperless organization in Nigeria, not even bank. And today in Sparkle, following that tradition, we're still paperless, right?
Okay.
Wow.
So on the back end side, because you're dealing with not your own system, but different type of system, right? You're going to have reconciliation issues. For example, just the fact that a customer transfers money from Sparkle to another bank means that if there's a service failure through the process, there's going to be some reconciliation. What normally happens is that you can see people typing. So what we're introducing is robotic process automation. We really started that. So robots actually do what humans are doing. We're doing the same thing. We're checking this money has gone, and then we are actually moving numbers through different ledgers and then saying yes or no.
I feel like you shouldn't let NLC hear this thing.
No, the thing about it is that unfortunately that's the world. That's the world. NLC has to get automate their.
They should automate.
And you have to do automation. You have to do that because like we are a very lean team. Right? We're a lean team with tens of thousands of customers. Might be in different time zones. So just because you're opening your account in Lagos doesn't mean that you might not be in China, in Japan. And so when there's a problem, 3 o'clock in the morning in Lagos, but 8 a.m. in whatever country you are. So we have to make sure that we can serve you at any time of the day without using humans, right? And from a process perspective, anyone will tell you that robots make less errors than humans.
Yeah.
They do 110,000 times more processing than one person can do. They're 24/7. But I think for us, what we found was key was the data that we capture. So if you're doing thousands of transactions, you're capturing the data when it was done, and that gives you insight on how to continue to improve your operational efficiency. On the other side, so that's robotic process automation, and there are quite a few, but then there's a generative AI. For us, that's a real game changer, internally and externally. Right? Internally, from the fact of, so this is, so if I use myself as a simple example, I wake up in the morning and I want to look at, I have a few dashboards, right? A few dashboards to go through, and that could take me 20, 30, 40 minutes. So so I wake up in the morning and I say, Alexa, what's the weather today? And Alexa tells me.
Right.
So this time next year, I want to be asking Indy, who's our chatbot, Indy, what happened yesterday? And then I would have prompted him to tell me what happened in terms of the top 5 customers, what the operational issues were, what the macroeconomic stuff are, and maybe tell me, based on what you know about Sparkle, who should I be talking to in the organization to help me to do stuff. And
so this is your vision of the future.
This is my vision of next year.
I love it.
This is the future.
No, I think it's important because we are talking about how AI is going to change things, and I think that's a nice kind of capsule of how you see it changing things.
So if I were to ask you now, so that's the back end, and it's actually very good to know because, again, how would we know unless we're told? And the truth of the matter is that it's not just this digital bank, right? There's so many other digital banks, so this is also a differentiator amongst all the other digital banks. But now for the user, the question is, if you don't have branches all over the place, right, how do we know to trust you? How can we trust Sparkle?
If I want to hold your shirt.
If anything happens, who do I come looking for?
I think interesting. I think I tweeted once. First of all, you have to understand the psychology before you apply the technology.
Indeed.
So we're living for the first time. We're living in a world where you have about 5 generations, right? The silent generation, baby boomer, Gen X, millennials, Gen Z, and even Gen Alpha now.
Yes.
In our generation, or my father's generation, information was power. We didn't share information. We were assets. In fact, we like to collect assets. We didn't want to. So you're going to find fewer people who have, people who have trust issues. They want to go to a bank. That's what they're used to. That's what they know, right? And there's little you can do to change that. That's the reality. But now, as the world changes, so for example, my father has a choice because he has minions like myself who do his bidding, right? People, Gen X don't have a choice because the world is changing. When you travel, when you go to New York, when you have to pay, nobody wants cash. So you have to adopt, right? So there's no choice. There's no choice there. For my son and my daughter, as far as they're concerned, banking is in the phone. If you tell them to go to a physical location, they don't actually understand. So the definition of trust is completely different from our definition. Our definition of trust is physical assets, C, right? The most physical. For digital natives and aliens and people who are born that this is about processes, reliability. Trust is not about I know you told me what. Trust is about this is going to happen when I press this, right?
Yeah.
And this is X, Y.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yes.
This is going to happen when
I
I
do
press
this.
this.
When I press this.
So I'm used to,
That, yeah.
if I click this on my iPhone, this happens. I click on my Samsung, that happens. So as a bank, the predictability of
Yes,
action
that's
and
the word.
reaction is where trust is built. I like that. That's really
and
important.
in reality, in Nigeria, people, I mean, like when you hear about these big banks, issues in the banks and everything, it is only affects a certain number of customers. A traditional bank that has 10 million customers, their customers in the urban areas, in the farm area, they don't understand what is going on. Their own trust is that when I go to this bank, it's going to open at 8 o'clock. It's about people. It's about the process. The process says open at 8 and it closes at 5.
I want to collect my money.
Yes, money collect. The day it doesn't open, right? then that process is broken. So it's actually not about people or assets. It's about the process that you have told me and the promises that you made to me.
Okay. I want to jump into regulation. What kind of license or licenses does Sparkle hold?
Microfinance license.
Microfinance.
Yes.
Does that suffice for your activities?
Today, yes, to start up. Tomorrow, definitely not. Because I think Sparkle, and I think sometimes people just think, people say fintech. And I try to tell people, I'm not a fintech, I'm a bank because I'm licensed, right? Because there's a difference. That means that your money is safe with me.
So wait, what is the difference between a fintech and a bank?
Well, if a bank is regulated, has high regulatory standards, high documentation, governance requirement, and management, right?
Okay.
And then also your deposits, you can take deposits. And your deposits are insured by NDIC.
Okay.
Right? So that is one. For the other, there are different types of license. So if you have and I do not know all of them, so if you have a mobile money license, I believe there's I'm not sure there's some insurance, I don't want to say what you don't know. There's mobile money, there's payment, PSP, they're not.
So you're saying you can be a fintech without being a bank?
Yes.
And it means you can do whatever transaction your license allows you.
Exactly.
But you're a bank
I'm a bank.
because you are
Exactly.
NDIC insured,
exactly.
you are,
Yes.
okay, and you're regulated by
that's
CBN.
And that's the level of trust that you must sell to people. Right? So why should you trust me? Because I have chosen to get a higher license. I put myself under higher scrutiny.
Okay. So still on regulation,
Yes.
you said you have a microfinance bank license, but it will not be sufficient as you grow bigger.
Yes.
But if what needs to change regulation-wise?
I believe the licensing regime needs to be looked at again.
Okay.
And why it needs to be looked at is because technology has changed everything.
Okay.
So like you have policies that were introduced way before. In fact, in the last 5 years, you've seen an advance in technology. People are doing what banks were doing with different financial and non-financial licensing. But in the end, the central bank's regulator or the legislative role is to protect the system, but also financial system stability, and also to grow the market in response to what is happening. Now, if we all know that digital is the future, that's going to give you competitive advantage from a national scale, we must look at policies that govern those. And one is, because to tell you the truth, why people use microfinance license? In fact, that a lot of people are using microfinance license, because that's the only appropriate license from a capital return perspective that they can use. But it also inhibits us from doing things like cross-border transactions. Nigeria is a country that has millions of people in diaspora that generate over 30 billion in money is coming in, and at a high cost to them. What if those barriers were actually dropped? We actually see more. And so for us, Sparkle is a digital bank for the affluent and startup business. People are starting their small business. And so for us to achieve that, we need to be able to provide premium services that can compete with what traditional banks do. So we need an appropriate license. That's what I said, the appropriate license.
Digital bank license or something like that.
Or if we have no choice, go for a bigger license. Because in the end, too, for us, it's a level
so theoretically, you could end up with a standard commercial banking license.
Yes, we would have to do that because it's also, because as you said earlier, how do you trust right? They trust because I actually put more money in my business. I have faith. I'm committed to it. That's what people also want to see from an investor and from also a stakeholder perspective.
Let me ask you a related question. How big is Sparkle these days?
So from customers, about 200,000 customers, or I don't even go into that 200,000 customers. I don't want to go to those numbers. 200,000 customers, 220 when you bring in small businesses. But I think for us, it's not a numbers game because there's also a cost to serving people. Now, I don't want to end up with 5 million customers, 10% active, and I'm spending money 75.
Sorry.
Right.
I don't want to and I also want to make sure I'm serving the right type of people as well. And so, and we can do that at a smaller scale. We can be profitable at a smaller scale because we've invested in the right technology.
To serve.
We've started lean, and so like we are actually we're very, very judicious about our cost profile. So we can afford to do that. Our cost of funds are low, so we can even lend at prices that are reasonable to the market, the segment that we want to serve.
So tell us, Uzoma, what lessons have you learned running a commercial bank that gives you insight to how you now run a digital bank?
That's a very interesting question, and it's actually been interesting because I would say 80% of the banking that I learned, right, I've just but banking has been with us through the ages, and I think the fundamentals have never changed, right?
Fair enough.
And so I like to use an analogy called we're building a skyscraper. And when you start building a skyscraper, you have to build down first before you build
up.
And so you're building a foundation that can take tens of floors.
Yes.
And so today, I would say that we're still building, so not many people know about Sparkle and what we do and why we're different from everybody else. Now, and so it's about corporate governance, right? About putting those painful structures in place by understanding who your stakeholders are. So understanding that you are a risk manager, you're making money from risk, and that's what. And so to do that, you must put the framework, risk management framework, from day one. Whether it's even before you started lending, put the structures in place to help us understand what is the risk of the market, what is the risk profile of the market, and how do you even use technology to. So risk is risk. How do you use technology to reduce bad risk, increase good risk? So operational risk is simple analogy. Operational risk is bad. That's people, right?
Right.
And that's people, and there are many. It's what with that. Financial risk is where you make money from, right? The more risk, the more return. And so for us, and just to use technology.
But the more risk, the more danger.
The more danger. The more risk. So I'll tell you. So simple example. The more you make things secure, the more risk that you can take. So cars today, people are going 120, 150 kilometers per hour. They have seat belts. So before they were going at 50 kilometers per hour. Because of technology and because of the way things are done, people are now, you can take more risk.
More risk.
Nice metaphor.
Yes, exactly. So for us, and so what does that translate to? It means that the less people I have in my business, the less people that are in the process of taking decisions,
Yeah.
right, it is faster, right? There's less risk of human bias. So if you take lending, for example, so we say that we're data-driven. Data-driven is important.
Yeah.
So it means that we're taking that operational risk out of decision-making at the data development. So it means that financial risk means that not that I'm taking bigger risk, it means that now I can even go down the pyramid. Right?
Okay. You've mentioned open banking a few times.
Yeah.
Yes.
This interview.
Yeah.
What does it mean? And where is it kind of in the policy process as far as you know?
Okay, open bank is about sharing information, right? And sharing information within certain standards to protect the system and also, the more important, the customer. But in the end, it just gives the customer the right over their data, which is we're beginning to see as asset. And a simple example, as I said, is that if I've been banking with Sparkle for the last 5 years, right? And then I want to borrow money from Carbon. Let me take Carbon for example. I want to borrow from.
You know why?
Yeah. I'd rather use them than anybody else.
Yeah.
I want to use Carbon for example. I would give Carbon permission. My customer will give Carbon permission to take my data to take a decision. Before, what would happen is that Any other bank will say, okay, you have to bank with us for three months before we give you.
If I have 3 months, the
Yeah.
only data they have.
But that's financial data. I think what's more exciting about it is that open banking is not just about financials, it's about also non-financial as well. So what if you could access my telecom data? What if you could access my so you now have a
Bigger
and so, yeah, and I say it will extend beyond banks.
Okay.
So when it extends beyond banks, it's also about, and it will actually help society as well, because
Well.
that becomes a credit.
Exactly.
What we knew as credit before was only financial. What do you know about social credit? What is your standing in society?
Right.
That's a utopian. Yeah. If we're looking to that future.
What else excites you about 2024?
I think the market. I think what excites me is about how we can grow this market, because and I think it's built on trust. So I'm seeing some legislation that we're liking, like like enhanced BVN and like making sure people use the BVN and their names. And I believe that we're going to look at the licensing, like to some extent this year. But I think what we are driving at, because I'm CEO of the I'm chairman of CEO committee and FinTech Nigeria. What we're actually driving is fighting cybercrime. Right? So we're building a platform that's going to provide information to the participants, right, to reduce or deter fraud in that industry. But what fraud does is actually reduces trust and stops people adopting digital, adopting the new way of banking. So that's what I'm looking at. Very simple, very basic, but very necessary.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Uzoma, for being here. My takeaway is paperless, contactless, cashless. There were a lot of nuggets about open banking. And we look forward to having you here again next year. And then you will tell us that you're able to say to Indy what happened in Sparkle last year.
Exactly.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
We're going to take a break now, and we'll be back with our second guest shortly. Welcome back to Tech into the Future. We're here with Didi Uwe-Makpan. She's VP Brand and Comms at MoneyPoint. Welcome, Didi.
Thank you.
So, MoneyPoint has gone from unknown to ubiquitous over the last few years, or, fairly unknown to ubiquitous. What's really driven your growth?
I like to think we had a bachelor's degree in banking and finance. So MoneyPoint started out as TMAT and spent a lot of time building infrastructure for banks. We built a lot of the digital banks, we built a lot of back office automation. So we had the expertise by the time we decided to go directly into the market.
Do you want to tell us which ones you built?
I wanted to tell you, but then I'm not sure.
Go ahead. This is a safe space.
Built a lot.
Okay, all right.
Sterling one.
Okay, all right.
We built a few of this.
All right.
And a lot of what fuels the automation and back office settlement at the commercial banks. And so when we decided to go directly to customers, what we thought about, it was a few things. So think of it this way. What do they need? Would they pay for that? So is there value in that problem that we're trying to solve? How do we get it to them? But the best part, how do we get them to use it consistently? A lot of people talk about seeing us at these places, but if you think about it, people have multiple terminals. Why do they keep using this? And what problem are we trying to solve for, which is the first question. We spend a lot of time. I think it was a culture shock when I joined MoneyPoint and I found myself in Ikorodu and Kano and just on the street understanding what the problems were. So we spend a lot of time understanding what the problems are. Back then, when we launched agency banking, it was reconciliation, right? People didn't know what was happening with their bank accounts at the end of the day, the agents. And so it was, how do you solve this problem? And then, would they pay for it? And so it was finding that sweet spot of payments, of pricing, sorry. And then the next step was distribution. How do you get it to them? I think that's something that we super cracked early on, thankfully. We spent our agency banking days building a network that would get things to people quickly and get it to them at the best price. And then how do you get them to use it consistently? So one, because of our expertise, bachelor's degree, right? we built a system that's reliable. With money, you have to make sure people get it when you say they'll get it.
Yeah.
And so that reliability is what you'd ask anyone right now, why do you use money points? That's the number one thing. There are a few other things, right? I spoke about us being super, like, we adapt to culture. Our support structure for a long time was very much, how do people like to be spoken to? Who would they listen to? And we went on and got people that they trusted. A lot of Nigeria is low trust, and that means that you want to get to them through people that they already trust. And in that, our distribution network, building that out, it was, how do we speak to them through this middleman that they would listen to? And we built all of that out, and thankfully we're in a good place today where people are consistently using us.
Fantastic.
So tell us, what's the key product that you offer in the market today?
So MoneyPoint aims to build an all-in-one digital financial platform. We started out with business banking, or businesses as a whole, and then moved on to consumer. And this is how we look at it. We look at it, if I think of financial management and a financial platform, I think of a bank. So how do you store money? How do you earn interest on that money? How are you saving? And then I think of payments. Do you have the means to pay? So a card, do you have the means to collect? And so MoneyPoint offers in-person payments. That's one market that we lead really well, where we have a POS terminal and you can pay with a card or via POS transfer.
And it's confirmed immediately.
Exactly.
Which I think is
that sound.
Yeah.
And then we have web payments, which a lot of people still don't know about. The product is called Moneyfi, and interestingly, we pioneered virtual accounts. So the first virtual account through Piggyverse Carrywise, it was offered by Moneyfi.
Okay.
We built it out for our agents to top up their accounts and decided to extend it to to other businesses. But yeah, so we do have web payments. We work with a lot of lending companies, a lot of organizations that need to collect funds from people and disperse funds to people. So it's similar to the likes of Flutterwave and Paystack. And then we have we have working capital loans, which we launched last year.
Okay.
And increasingly, how that works is you have a bank account with us, you process payments through us, and we're like, oh, great guy, do you want credit? And so we've been able to keep a really low NPL on that because we know the customers. We know these people.
For the audience, NPL, non-performing loans.
Oh, yeah.
So the portion of the percentage of their loans that don't get paid back.
Yeah, so we increasingly learn that Nigerians pay back. They just need to
lend to the right ones.
Yes, so we make sure that we lend to the right ones, the ones that we can trust. They've used us for a minute. And we're building out the business management side of things, so bookkeeping, tax, accounting. Hopefully in the near future, for whatever you need, you use MoneyPoint.
I mean, okay, so let's talk about that. You've talked about a range of business products here. So your ubiquitous, POS service, everybody's familiar with that, or a lot of people are familiar with that. Working capital loans, virtual accounts, that's all business facing and seems like an important set of tools that perhaps not many people on the market are providing right now. But last year, you guys also really started pushing into consumer-facing products, which seems like a more crowded space. So why leave this area where you're dominating, you're building essential services that few other people are building to go compete with Bubuiru in the consumer space?
Thank you very much.
Mubuiru meeting. Somebody.
Everybody, sorry. Bubuiru, everybody's in the market.
Thank you very much for that question. But yes, we expanded into consumer banking. So we're very much still in business banking. We're very much providing solutions for businesses. But if you think about it, you cannot really fully provide solutions for businesses if you don't provide for their employees and their customers. So let me give you an example. You want to give salary advance to this business. If I have the adequate license to provide their employees bank account, I'm not going to put that salary advance in a different bank account.
Fair enough.
And so we do have that. Our license allows us, and that's why when I spoke about our services, I had consumers sat on that banking. Okay. Because on that banking, then we can do savings as well for these consumers. We can offer them a lot more. But Yes. So one, it was that, and then two, a MoneyPoint card and a MoneyPoint POS just works, right?
It's exciting for you.
and not just exciting, right? Because if we say that we are providing reliability and we have the ability to close that ecosystem in some way and ensure that, hey, I can beat my chest 100%. This transaction is not going to fail. Then I can do that, and that's another reason we went into the market.
So that's reliability plus plus.
So it's
Exactly.
reliability, but there's also an opportunistic thing there. So I'm already going to give the loans. So
Exactly. Might as well open
enter
it
my
up
own
for everybody.
accounts.
I promise you that we're very commercially driven as well. Yes.
Okay, all right.
So that leads to the next question. How big is MoneyPoint today?
We have well over 1 million active businesses using our terminals today across Nigeria. So we're in every single community. We're in every single community. We have the most terminals.
You're everywhere. Like tell me what's the ubiquitous.
We're everywhere, and external validation would be the FT Africa, the Financial Times saying that we were Africa's second fastest growing company last year. So yes, we've grown, and we are 8 out of 10 POSs to a large extent with MoneyPoint.
I mean, this is instructive, but it doesn't tell us how much the
But that's how you can tell she's bad on communication. She answered the question without asking the question.
In terms of numbers, so we're not a publicly listed company. However, I can say that we do. Last year we did over 5 billion transactions, and if you look at it this way, you get a percentage of every transaction you process.
So percentage of 5 billion. You guys aren't doing too badly. Next year, we'll publish. When you come, we'll talk about the actual revenue number. Let's focus a little bit and talk about sort of banking versus fintechs, and from your perspective, what's the distinction between a bank and a fintech? And you guys provide a wide range of services. So
What's the difference? I think it's complementary. So a fintech is a technology-first organization that's providing financial services. If they have a banking license, then that pretty much makes them a bank. If they do not have a banking license, then they cannot hold funds and are just merely a fintech. So we see ourselves as a bank.
Okay.
We position ourselves as a bank.
you have a banking license?
Yes, and because we want you to, we want your deposits, so it's important that we have that license and position as that. So essentially, it's complementary. A lot of fintechs actually have the appropriate license to be banks.
So what license is it?
To be a bank, you have to have a banking license, and to the different tiers of banking licenses, there's the microfinance banking license. You have unit, state, and you have regional, you have national. That allows you to have fiscal presence in every single community in the country.
So which ones does MoneyPoint have? Which licenses?
We do have a microfinance bank license, and we also have a switching and processing license that allows us with all of the payment processing that we do. So a lot of fintechs who are not banked might not be able to process money, but we are able to do that because we do have a switching license.
Okay.
And do the two licenses allow you, or do they suffice for all the activities that MoneyPoint engages in now?
Currently, so we will keep gathering them as infinity stones. It's like, oh hey, this license. But right now, yes, very much. I think the payment license we have, which is the switching license, is the highest tier, and it allows us to do a bunch of things.
Okay. We're going to come back to this regulatory conversation, but we're going to go to a break right now, and we'll be back with you shortly on Tech into the Future.
Welcome back to Tech into the Future. We're still here with Didi from MoneyPoint.
Okay. So, on the one hand, still on regulatory matters. On the one hand, we have a regulatory environment that's allowed us to build one of the most innovative sort of fintech and banking landscapes in the world. On the other hand, you still have circulars from CBN or NIBS that kind of appear as if in the middle of the night, and then the entire industry is scrambling to respond. I mean, the most recent one was NIBS on disconnecting non-financial deposit receiving institutions. And that's a good policy, it makes sense, but it did kind of feel like it came out of the blue. So I'm curious from an industry perspective, is there a move to sort of like get ahead of the regulation? The banks have the bankers committee. I know there's fintech organizations, but it doesn't seem to have the same heft. So what kind of joint regulatory action is happening across the industry from your perspective, or is needed?
I'd like to speak on the leaves circular first. I think that it was just housekeeping, right? They sent it to the relevant parties, and what then happened was people got in the media and then spun the news. And not just
everyone always blames the media.
No,
Everyone blames the media for
I
this.
knew you would do this. So not the media, but like the media. I feel like it leaked on social media, and then media platforms took it up. And of course, no one was exactly verifying who is affected and what is affected.
But there's a process for these things.
Yes, but I was going to say this, that everyone, by the way, everyone involved had gotten that 2 days before then. Everyone was fine. Everyone, all of those institutions listed, held no funds. Like we were not doing, and by we I mean our payment subsidiary was listed as well.
Right.
You could never have transferred money.
Okay, all right.
In the first place, so it was something that everyone was aware of, and so it was fine.
So what caused the
Yeah.
confusion? Because there was a great deal of confusion.
And what was the need for the circular in the first place if everybody knew?
Everybody was already-
So no, they had sent it directly to the organizations, as they usually do. And I guess my point on that is just, how do you communicate to within the industry, within an industry that's very panic driven in a digital age? If it was back then, there wasn't social media, you'd see it in the newspaper the next day.
Yeah.
Fine. No one's going to talk to the next person that way. So it would die down at some point. You're not going to see that level of panic. But how do you communicate? And the responsibility is on everyone in the ecosystem, from the regulator to all of us organizations.
Because it does seem 2, 3, 4 times a year we have a panic over some circular that's being misinterpreted by the
Exactly.
public or by...
Exactly.
And so it seems like there must be a process that's a bit sharper
So we
for
need
getting these things out.
That's one, and we need to think about, if you are back then, right, you were communicating directly to banks.
Right.
Now other people will see it. The general public will
Absolutely.
see it. How do you just manage that communication for them as well?
So that was going to be my thing. I know it might sound very simplistic, literally in the wording, right? Because if you word it in such a way that you realize that non-bankers and non-stakeholders are going to see this, you want to do it in such a way that it's clear that the people that should know about this already know. So this is coming as a reminder or as a source of clarity or for clarification or whatever have you. When we read, as people that are not the stakeholders, when we read some of these circulars, they come off as the first time, right? It comes up like we're just literally making this law today. And again, because we've had so many of these panics, I figure, how about we just now realize that we're communicating in a different age, and because it's going to get leaked to everyone, we're just mindful of how we say things. It's like when you're writing an email, like, listen, anybody can get that email. So I want to make sure that when you read that email, it is clear what I'm trying to say and who I'm saying it to, so there's no misconceptions whatsoever.
Absolutely agree. And so the bit on collaboration, because the only way they would communicate the way our customers understand, because all of this panic is because they have monies with us, right? So
Right.
we need that.
You need to engage
collaboration. We need
more.
to engage them.
So what's
Exactly.
the future of that engagement?
It needs to be more synchronized, I'll be honest. Is
Yeah.
it happening in one way or the other? Absolutely. It's happening in various.
It feels like it's
various
happening in
pockets.
silos.
Exactly.
You have your
Exactly.
mind in Abuja, they have their
Yeah.
mind in
Exactly.
Abuja.
Or
Where's
we
the
attend
industry?
this, and we. I believe this new administration is doing a lot around. The CBN focuses on what they have to focus on, and one of it are things like this. How and with the collaboration, collaborating better with digital banks would certainly help. It would certainly help, because then we'll tell them, hey, this is how we talk to our customers.
Lastly, let's talk about 2024. What are the big focus areas for MoneyPoint this year?
I feel like I'm about to tell you a secret, but
You heard it first here.
I think very important for us is to sustain growth. You can't say you see us everywhere today and tomorrow you won't find us. So that's not going to happen. We want to ensure that we provide the best services and the best tools to ensure people keep using us. And expand. We launched working capital loans, right? But the aim is to expand that product. What does that look like in form of salary advance? How do we offer Islamic loans? How do we offer a lot more? Of course, while making money at it. And so the goal for us is expand our product lines, launch a few more, provide a few more, diversify revenue. Yes, that's very big for us. We just want to be. I apologize.
Okay, all right. You want to be everywhere. So beyond MoneyPoint, though, what are the big changes you see in fintech and then in tech broadly in Nigeria, across Africa, and the year to come?
In fintech, I really love that the open banking regulation happened. I'm looking forward to seeing more of it, and open banking
implemented.
allows, you're able to give access to authorized access to your bank account, and it would help with lenders. It help with you're trying to move into a house. The landlord needs to know that I can trust you. You earn salaries and all. You just give access, and so open banking would help things be a bit more seamless. Direct debits. A few startups have started. They've gone into beta testing direct debit products, and what direct debit is you give an organization authorization to debit you, so you can pay
Every month.
without having to think about it. It's a no-brainer in a lot of countries, and I'm happy that we're getting to that point. It would also really help with lending. It will help with our working capital loans, where you can be sure that
The repayment will happen same time.
exactly. Of course, there still has to be.
You're going to have trust issues
Yes,
on that as well.
absolutely. And there has to be consequences for bad actors, because if you leave the country, how do we find them?
Exactly.
But still, that's a very important product. And I'm looking forward to more contactless payments. People are testing across the country, across the continent. I'm looking forward to us getting to that point where transportation in your Ubers, you can just tap to pay. No one is doing a transfer, or no one is slotting in a card. This technology is coming into play in the continent, on the continent, sorry. So I'm looking forward to that. Tech as a whole, AI.
Of course.
Customer service, there's a lot that can be done with it. There's a lot. It can help me finish my presentation.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being here with us. It's been fantastic speaking to you. We look forward to having you again and, keeping track of what MoneyPoint is doing and how it's going.
Thank you.
You've been watching Tech into the Future. We'll be right back after this break. Welcome back to Tech into the Future. I think we had quite interesting conversations about the changing face of banking. I think my takeaways are contactless, cashless, and what was the third one? Paperless, right? And that is now my tagline for Sparkle. Another thing that I think both guests mentioned was about open banking and how transformational it's going to be, not just in the banking industry, but for us also as users, because it's going to change the landscape of lending. And once you change that, all the access challenges that we have due to affordability, all the way down to just even buying a device, all those things change, right? Lending, borrowing, all those things change because now there's more information, there's more data points. And the last one was actually the disparity in the numbers, right? So Uzoma talked about how they are 200,000 in terms of size, and Didi had mentioned at MoneyPoint that they have over 1 million POSs they have POSs in over 1 million supermarkets. And so for me, I thought, well, that's interesting that, the size difference, I guess.
Yeah. No, I think a couple of interesting points there. Definitely really excited to see how open banking plays out.
Yes.
It's going to be interesting because, we're a notoriously low trust market.
Yes,
and
we are.
I think what's interesting about open banking is theoretically it's supposed to enhance trust, because then you grant your information to whoever it is that you want to have it and for whatever purpose it is. But that's also going to require a lot of consumer education in terms of how that works.
Yes, indeed.
I'm very excited to have somebody from the CBN come on a future episode so we can talk about how this is actually going to play out and how it will work for the man on the streets. I think your point the relative size of MoneyPoint and Sparkle is interesting. So 220,000 customers on the Sparkle end versus over 1 million supermarket and store owners with MoneyPoint POS is quite a big difference. But I did like what Uzoma said about the specificity of their approach. They've kept their team lean, they've kept their costs low, and they are emphasizing using data and technology to kind of
Exactly.
serve customers in a really strategic way.
He also,
It will be interesting to see how that plays out in the long term from a profitability and scale perspective, but it's an
Yeah.
interesting approach.
He also talked about AI, and not just front-serving AI, right? Just AI from the service point of view. He talked about AI in the efficiencies and the productivity within the team. And I think for me, that's also interesting because that perhaps is what's going to help them scale, make them more scalable at the time that they're ready for that. And then another takeaway that I thought was noteworthy was about building deep. So he given the analogy of when you want to build a skyscraper, right? And how much piling you have to go, right? So it's focusing on building the foundation. So they're intentional about not, about keeping it at 200,000 or keeping the growth at the point at which it is so that they can focus on building the foundation. After which, then, that determines how high they want to go.
It'll be really interesting to see how that plays out. I thought there was a really interesting point in terms of not having 5 million customers with only 10% of them active.
Exactly,
But
yes.
keeping a small base that
Because
you
of the
keep
costs. Exactly.
completely active. So you're not like maintaining people that you're spending money on who are not then transacting with you. But MoneyPoint also talked about sort of keeping their customers very, very active. And they're
Yes.
a really interesting business. They've scaled very fast. And I thought it was interesting to see sort of some of the stuff that they're talking about in terms of the year to come. So the working capital product is a really interesting
Direct
one.
deposits.
That's direct deposits, direct debits.
Direct debits, direct
Yeah,
debit,
direct
direct debit.
debits are going to be interesting. Again, another innovation, and when we talk about the changing face of banking,
Right.
that's a product that if you're in the West, you're very, very used to. Direct debits, your rent comes out at the same date every month, your Netflix checks comes out the same date. You don't have to pay it.
Utility
It's just
bills,
like
everything
utility
is
bills, everything
paid at
comes
the same
out.
time, yes.
But in Nigeria, that's a product we've not had. It's interesting to see that she mentioned a few people have it in beta testing. It will be interesting to see how it plays out and how customers respond to it, because if there's anything Nigerians don't like is money leaving their account when they have not said
Yes,
take it out today. So it's going to be interesting to see how customers
Well,
adapt to
the
that.
truth is you have to opt into it, right? So you would have at least the
But
option.
that's what people forget. That's it.
At least the option exists for us, for those that want direct debit for that to happen. Another thing that I thought was fascinating that I learned today, actually, I don't think I realized. So MoneyPoint is now ubiquitous, right? But then to find out they've been in the industry and they've been sowing there, it was like they've been working hard and they were prepared for the opportunity. The opportunity we're talking about here is sometime last year when there was cashlessness. Is that a thing?
Yeah, well,
there was
yeah.
cashlessness in the
The
market.
cash crunch around the time when we were going to change
Currency.
our currency before we decided
Not to change the
our
currency, right? That time, and that cash crunch led to the ubiquity or the explosion of MoneyPoint. But that was also because they were prepared. So she mentioned about how they're behind Alat, Sterling Bank, and they're also the pioneers of virtual bank accounts, which I definitely didn't know that was them.
Yeah. No, definitely. I think they were called TMAT before they became MoneyPoint.
Yes, that's true.
And it's interesting to see the depth of their history in serving other banks, in
Yes.
building digital platforms prior to that. And that's definitely a great foundation for the business that they've built today. Thank you for joining us on Tech into the Future. It's been a fascinating conversation. We'll be back with you next week to talk more about how tech is changing your lives and our lives and the continent as a whole. My name is Tomiwa Ladikomo.
And I am Ngozi Madueke Dozie, signing off.